Okay, so good morning. Thank you, Hendrik and Greg, for the introductions and for organizing the panel. I will talk today about two examples in New York. In fact, one really and the other one only as a point of reference. Both of them along line 7, which is actually a very interesting subway line, the most interesting subway line to my mind in New York City. It connects one of the wealthiest with one of the poorest cities, enclaves, so to say. Hudson Yards so to the west, and Flushing, Queens, all the way to the northeast. So the first circle on your left is going to be 34th Street and Hudson Yards. The one on your far right is going to be 103rd Street and Corona Plaza. So the story really of two cities that we experience, or many experience in this city on a daily basis, is really encapsulated and exemplified by these two different cases. The global imagination about the public space in New York City has been captured by the High Line, of course, in recent years, and next to it, Hudson Yards. Even though those who originally enjoyed the High Line knew very little about what's coming. Once the Hudson Yards was there, the Line 7 was extended from Times Square to Hudson Yards in order to connect the city to this latest development that cost the city around $5 billion, and in fact is the wealthiest by all means, the wealthiest, healthiest, whitest neighborhood in the city. If you travel from this place, and by the way, it's just a few more slides to show you how this looks like for those of you who haven't been there. The key piece there is, of course, the vessel designed by Thomas Heatherwick, the guy on this slide. On March 17th, the place closed, and it can close. It's a privately owned entity, so it can, of course, close anytime it wants, even though this was mandated by the city of New York in this particular case. So the place closed, and one of its key tenants, Neiman Marcus, filed for bankruptcy very recently. Not surprisingly, many more are to follow. And of course, the city, after investing such major resources into this development, is now wondering, as we all are, what is going to happen there and how much is going to cost the city and the state of New York to bail out now this unnecessary predatory development. On the other hand, if you travel on line 7 for about 40-45 minutes from there and go east, you will get to Queens. And first, the last stop is Flushing, Queens, mostly Chinese, Asian, and Asian American populated neighborhood. The busiest stop, the second busiest subway stop in the city, in the entire city. And on the way to it, you get to the circle, the red circle over there is 103rd Street, Corona Plaza. These are the images from 2 weeks ago. So you can see how this place, how the station looks like. You can see the train 7. You can see mostly men in peak hours during the morning commute, and you can see the platform of the 103rd Street stop 2 weeks ago. This is how Corona Plaza looks like right now. Still, in some ways, not a dead public space, but the one that has reoriented itself towards basically essential support for essential workers and their families who mostly reside in this area. These are some of the images: people waiting in line for kitchen soup, food banks, street vendors selling now fresh fruits because most of the stores are closed, and so on and so forth. If you look at all of the data, anything available in relation to public health, environmental impact, COVID-19, socio-demographic data, all of them basically are compiled in the next following slides. This one is an interactive heat index map where you can see the area we're talking about, Corona, is in bright red center left. Right here, almost in the middle of this blue map, you can see the darkest spots. Those are Corona and Elmhurst. And these are the areas where you, even before the pandemic, you knew that the risk factors such as poverty, age, income level, health insurance availability, overcrowding, and many other factors were already putting this area at a very high risk. In fact, one of the riskiest areas in terms of public health and all the other issues in the city. You can see it here, dark blue. And you see, of course, that where the coronavirus hit the hardest is exactly there. So corona neighborhood, sorry, no, coronavirus, corona neighborhood in Queens and Elmhurst were among the hardest hit areas in the city. To the left, you see Governor Cuomo, who is surprised by it and actually says good research is necessary for us to understand why the poorest neighborhoods always pay the highest price, and how is it possible that Latino and African American residents of New York City always pay the highest price and suffer the most. Of course, and here is below is he cleaning the subway with the workers. But of course, you know, the research is there. We all know why this is happening. We know the evidence is there. So it's not the question of why this is happening. The question is, what do we do about it? And what is really amazing is that when you look at all of this recent research, you would understand that then the most interesting part and the paradox, okay, thank you. The paradox is that you see 67% in the research survey by Hester Street actually say that during the crisis, they were supported by financially and by all other means, by community organizations, neighborhood organizations, and basically the realm of the domain of civil society, right? So no government, no federal, no state, no city, it's just community organizations. When you look at Corona Plaza and how Corona Plaza came into being, you understand that basically the city has invested in the creation of Corona Plaza through something called the Public Plaza Program, through which they help neighborhoods in needs create public spaces where there are none or very few. And so Corona Plaza was one such place where Queens Museum, as an anchor community institution, helped working with the city, gather the community organizations, and basically create a very vibrant public plaza right next, adjacent to the subway stop, in 2018. These are the pictures from last summer, a very vibrant place where a number of different cultures come together on a daily, regular basis. This is summer 19. And what is really interesting about this is that this place, in fact, came into being both by people, differentiated communities who speak different languages, different religions, come from different places, come together to create the place. Once the place is created, the place actually becomes a catalyst for an emergence of a new public, which is, I find this quite interesting, because if you look at what do you need in order to surpass the impasse we are in, you need a resilience at the community level. Where you find the resilience at the community level, seemingly paradoxically, these are the places where coronavirus hit the hardest. And the question is why? Why? Is because proximity, density, interlocking, people living and working together, creating a web of relationships that of course then are exposed to things like coronavirus, because it's like, yeah, right. So I just want to point out this picture is one of the organizations in the neighborhood. And if you saw the pictures of the slides of people in trains, mostly men. If you look at the community organizations and how they're woven together, mostly women. And women are basically the carriers of all of this work in this neighborhood. What I wanted to leave you with are some slides of how this works and how they're organized, is the following. On the right is the Corona Plaza, on the left is Hudson Yards. Corona Plaza cost the city $2 million in construction costs, and it costs $60,000 a year to maintain. $5 billion is the initial cost for Hudson Yards. City money, that's just public money. And so what I'm calling the infrastructures of inclusion is precisely what happened in Corona Plaza. In other words, infrastructures of inclusion, in my view, are the types of infrastructures that communities and civic groups build together in order to catalyze and sustain processes of transformation of themselves, their communities, their societies, towards a more diverse, democratic, just and inclusive city. They do that by both creating public spaces, and in return, these public spaces, in fact, transcends the limitations of communal and build a unique public, new public. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.